Well, good morning and welcome to the Leverage Technologies SAP webinar, Grow with SAP and Wholesale Distribution. I hope people don't mind. We're going to record this session. There are a number of people who wanted to attend today and cannot for various reasons, conflicts in diary, and have asked if we can record and then cut a video to go with this session. So if it's okay with everybody, we will be recording. Before we start, a quick tip so that you can get the most out of your online viewing experience today. I know that people are deeply experienced in using Teams, but in your Teams menu, if you go to View, then when the options are presented, click on Focus on Content, then click on More and Full Screen. I'll give you a few seconds to do that. What that will do is will optimize your viewing inside Teams so that you get a full screen focused view on the content. Our guest speakers today got myself, Brett. I'm going to lead you through a bit of a preamble, go through the agenda, talk to you about cloud and moving to the cloud. We've got Andrew Casey, our product expert from Leverage Technologies, Justine, who's online, another one of our product experts that will take you through analytical cloud. We had planned for Scott to be with us today, but Scott took a short trip to Bali, and as many of you who've been following the news would know, there's a volcano eruption in Bali, or there has been. So as we speak, Scott was due to fly back yesterday. That got delayed. He's on an aeroplane right now. So a valid reason for Scott not being with us today. What we've decided to do is we'll cut short the presentation today. And we've asked Scott, when he's back at his desk in the next few days, he's going to cut a video on his portion, which is operational excellence in the warehouse. We'll then incorporate that into the video that we're recording today, create a complete package then, and then we will forward that to yourselves after the event. So by way of introduction, my name is Brett Mundell. I'm the Managing Director of Leverage Technologies. Leverage is an SAP partner with 19 years of SAP ERP experience, and we support more than 350 customers across our ERP portfolio. A high percentage of our customers are in wholesale distribution and manufacturing. So typically those customers have inventory requirements, inventory planning requirements, and those customers are supported on ERP, CRM, and analytics across the Australian landscape. So let's have a quick review on the agenda and what we'll get out of today. We'll talk about trends and challenges facing the wholesale distribution industry. A hot topic, artificial intelligence. Let's have a discussion about this disruptor that is fast becoming part of our everyday lives. Then the all-important demonstration of SAP S/4HANA Public Cloud for wholesale distribution. I'll be handing over at that point to Andrew and then Justine, who will be looking at SAP Analytics and the SAP application. We'll talk as well during today about a couple of examples of customers in wholesale distribution that have benefited from SAP S/4HANA Public Cloud. So let's set the scene with a discussion about why wholesale distribution companies are moving to the cloud. 10 years ago, customers were implementing mostly on-premise solutions. A server was located on site, and internal or outsourced IT looked after the infrastructure. Well, as is always the case with technology, a lot changes in 5 to 10 years. Now, almost every implementation of ERP software in Australia is in the cloud, or is moving towards the cloud. So what's changed and why are customers moving to the cloud? Change is everywhere, and businesses want to, in fact, must embrace this change. Clearly, technology helps adjust to change. So what are the changes that we're seeing in wholesale distribution? In a COVID and then post-COVID world, we've got supply chain challenges, we've got inflation, market competition, locally and globally. Consumer choices and expectations are constantly changing. Industry standards and compliance, ESG, for example. Cost of living pressure, political changes, think tariffs, geopolitical instability. So companies know that the only constant is change. Add into this mix challenges like cash flow. Am I holding the right amount of inventory? Can I complete the orders to my customers? How many customers am I losing because I don't hold the right amount of inventory? So how does this translate to a move to the cloud? Well, technology can help with many of these challenges. Think of analytics, which can be implemented for improved decision making, AI for automation. We'll talk a little bit about that later. ERP for inventory planning. Think integrated business planning, material requirements planning, on-time in-full delivery, and improved pick accuracy using scanning technology in the warehouse, particularly in complex environments where you may have batch requirements for compliance or you might have serial number compliance. Just a few examples there how ERP and technology can help with those challenges facing the wholesale distribution industry. So why move to the cloud? Rate of innovation. The cloud lends itself to change, scale up, scale down, provide regular updates, and be at the leading edge of technology, always innovating. Other reasons to move to the cloud are access to greater computing power for AI, analytics, and other resource-hungry requirements. Improved cybersecurity, very, very topical amongst boards of directors these days. Cash flow, pay monthly, annually for improved cash flow rather than a very large upfront investment in an ERP application. Avoid high cost of on-premise infrastructure and resource costs and get access to technology like SAP S for HANA Public Cloud. So talking of costs, a quick review of the costs to be considered when implementing and moving to an ERP solution in the cloud. There are a few obvious elements like cloud fees, your annual subscription for software as a service based on the number of users or potentially the modules that you have. There's an implementation of ERP, so the setup, the configuration and services consultancy for things like user training, user acceptance testing, project management, and other services. You'll hear us in an SAP S4 world talk about fit to standard. S4 HANA Public Cloud has about 800 pre-built business processes in the application. Think of processes like quote to cash, procure to pay. If you use the standard business processes, we can reduce the cost to implement. We can reduce timeline and complexity, thereby reducing risk of an implementation overrun or timeline overrun. Don't worry, if you have business processes that are not fit to standard, SAP has a business technology framework that we can use to offer extensibility, integration, and low-code, no-code development. Too often, the investment required when implementing ERP that is not discussed in detail, but should be, is customer resourcing. When implementing ERP, customer resources, people resources, time resources are often overlooked. Now, these resources can be under time pressure. The reason companies are implementing ERP is that they're experiencing hypergrowth. Hypergrowth means that team members are busy. How do these team members allocate time to implementing ERP whilst doing their day jobs? So when implementing ERP, these time pressures need to be backfilled by the implementation partner, by a third-party consultancy company, or additional team members. Your implementation partner should work with you to understand the internal resource requirements when implementing ERP. Think about data conversion, user training, user acceptance testing, and time that needs to be allocated to these tasks. There is an additional cost there that needs to be outsourced or needs to be backfilled as part of that total cost of ownership. I want to talk briefly about the types of customers that are moving to the cloud in wholesale distribution. And what we see on screen is typical mid-market customers. We'll talk in a little bit about what mid-market is and the fact that smaller businesses are adopting SAP in the cloud. But just to give you a couple of examples here, some of the advantages that these businesses have experienced include a 50% reduction in manual processing of invoices. For example, on the AR or AP side, they might be automating through AI bots, robotic process automation, the invoice process. A 20 to 25 decrease in IT operating costs by moving to the cloud because the infrastructure is in the cloud, the upgrades are in the cloud, and 100% of quality control data reported in real time. So some larger customers, household names that you might recognize that use SAP solutions and that we typically associate with a solution the scale of SAP. But here are some smaller mid-market customers that use SAP, names which you may or may not recognize. Great businesses that are growing at scale and have implemented SAP HANA in the cloud. Some of these businesses that Leverages talks to on a regular basis have a turnover of $30 million, $40 million, and then are looking to scale from there. But what it means is that SAP in the mid-market has been able to bring the size of the customer down, provide additional functionality to those customers through the cloud. So these are typical mid-market customers that have outgrown their legacy solutions that want to move to the cloud and access the latest technology. Let's talk a little bit then about technology and automation and about AI. It's something which most boards are talking about at the moment. Most CEOs are talking about, including in the board pack. Where are we going with AI? What does that look like? So SAP has a platform as a service called the Business Technology Platform. The Business Technology Platform has multiple components. It has an integration suite if you're a wholesale distribution business and you want to integrate CRM or e-commerce or EDI would be some common examples. If you want to create development, so low code or no code development, or intelligent robotic process automation, think of areas in your business that could be automated. For example, AP automation and invoice creation from a shared AP email inbox with machine learning to streamline the AP process, receiving, scanning, creating the AP invoices, and going through an approval workflow with matching of the PO, the AP invoice, the goods receipt. Automating that process across the AP landscape to save time and money and reallocate those resources that were doing manual tasks to better high-value tasks. Think bank reconciliations and machine learning from bank feeds. This transaction on this date with this reference is typically this type of transaction. Automate that through bank feeds and through the bank reconciliation process. Sales order automation. So receive a PDF sales order and automate the process from which those sales orders are processed with automatic workflow and escalations for on-time in-full delivery or notifications to the customer where we can't do an on-time and full delivery. What about more advanced areas potentially like material requirements planning, independent business planning to ensure that we purchase and hold the right inventory at the right time? What role might machine learning play in helping forecast sales and delivery across complex business models, geographies, and supply chain disruption? So let me introduce you briefly to SAP Joule. SAP Joule is an SAP AI co-pilot helping users perform everyday tasks to automate and provide analytics for decision-making and automation. We spoke on the previous slide of a few areas of automation. As we can see on screen here, here's another example. The user asked the SAP AI Copilot what their tasks are for the day, a natural language question. The AI Copilot produces a list of orders to be followed up, a list of tasks to be followed up. The AI journey is just beginning. There needs to be a cautious approach to AI, ensuring that AI is trustworthy, relevant, and reliable. At the forefront of this, SAP is investing very heavily into the AI space to provide customers with business AI that will automate and streamline operations through access to better analytics, as an example. Justine will demonstrate a little later SAP Analytics Cloud. And inside that application, we can use natural language reporting. So we can put into natural language the report that we're looking for. The system will write the report, display the report. And then, for example, AI might review the report and suggest a few changes. AI might suggest that you incorporate budget numbers and gross profit calcs into the picture so that you get a more complete picture of your business. So a very exciting journey ahead in AI. It's early days, a lot more to come. SAP investing very heavily into this space. During our conversation and presentation, you might hear us talk a little bit about Grow with SAP. To Grow with SAP is more than a cloud application. It's more than S/4HANA Public Cloud. Grow with SAP is cloud user enablement, implementation methodologies, videos for user self-enablement, a complete package across ERP, AI, CRM, analytics, with industry-specific tools to optimize operations, and also assist with the implementation process of the ERP application in the cloud and the ongoing support process. This enables us as the partner and you as the customer to reduce risk, go live quickly, and maximize your return on investment. I want to talk briefly then about a couple of case studies before I hand you over to Andrew and Justine to take you through S/4HANA Public Cloud. We spoke a little bit earlier about SAP in the mid-market for wholesale distribution. Let's look at a couple of quotes from these highly successful customers. We can see that our processes became faster and more efficient. We have a much better grip on production. stock and delivery times. And here a quote from the mid-market customer. As a small to mid-sized enterprise, we need to ensure that processes are automated. So the common theme amongst these customers is that they are not massive corporate customers, they are mid-market customers. The theme is automation, and the theme is access to information across the business. Thank you for listening. I'm going to hand you over to Andrew and Justine to demonstrate S/4HANA Public Cloud. Andrew, I'm going to stop sharing and then let you share your screen.
Thanks, Brett. Happy to be able to assist in this way. So just briefly, folks, just show you, talk about what we're going to show you today. Necessarily, in a meeting like this, we are not going to be able to show you specific detail around the application as suits your business necessarily. And so we're going to do a generic presentation, and I'm not going to make the most of Scott not being here and take an extra 25 minutes. So bear with me. It'll only be the 30, 40 minutes that Justine and I will do for you that we promised in the first place. But we'll take you through a look and feel of the application so you can see how the SAP product has been completely modernized and made easy to actually use. I'll go into one detail only, that is in the item master, just to show you the level of information that is available to you. And then we'll quickly look at a forecast, what MRP, Material Requirements Planning, does, and run through a quick purchase and sales before I pass over to Justine for some analytics. So really it's just, looking at a product, buying the product, selling the product, wholesale distribution in a nutshell. So let's go into the actual application here. So SAP is a public cloud, obviously, being based on the name, is a internet-based or a cloud-based application. So you'll see at the top here, I'm actually running in a browser. Now, it doesn't matter what browser I'm using. It is device agnostic, it is browser agnostic. And how it is displayed, presented to you for your use is entirely up to each individual user. Now, obviously, we do start with business roles, and those business roles allow you to see the data that you may necessarily access. So if you're a purchasing officer, you may just see the purchasing portion of the application as your starting point. If you're the person in sales, excuse me, or the sales manager, then you may see the sales manager's role, and you'll see these tiles that are coming up on the screen that are both access to overview data, so a customer's overview or a 360-degree view or dashboards. And also there are some KPIs that are indexing themselves at the moment and showing me, because they're updating as I open this area, and they're showing me the information that is critical to me to do my role. But everybody has a home page. Now, the home page itself is completely amendable. I happen to have it in this order because that's the order that I like. But I can go into the screen itself and I can go to my home settings and I can play with the order that things are. So if I move news down to this stage here, then my screen is immediately changing and that news panel is now down the bottom. So it's very, very simple to move things around. I'm going to put it back up because I'll get confused in my demo and forget where I am if I don't have it in my normal way. But I've actually configured it to the way that I want to run. You have a number of pages, and so they may be specific to you. And because I do demos all day long, I have one of everything set up. So excuse the fact that this is all about AR and cash and general ledger when we're trying to talk about sales and purchasing and wholesaling today. But you'll also see down here, I have my areas where I have items for sales, for purchasing, for inventory, for my master data. They have been, all of these areas that have a number of options within them, each one has been created by myself. So I have gone in and created a group that I've called sales, and I have added into the sales group all of these functions because they are the processes I want. And they may also be in the order that I want them, because I can, again, drag and drop wherever I want to position things so I can see the data the way that I want to see it. Excuse me. Fortunately, I did a few hours of presenting yesterday and the voice is weak today. So the application allows you to see the information as you want it on your desktop. It can include KPIs, insight tasks, as we call them, insight cards, that straight away tell me how my suppliers are going. What's my day's sales outstanding? What's my stock value? Each of these are drillable, so you can go into the detail behind them. You can add more onto the screen as you want. So I can go up here and I can say which cards I want, and it allows me to add and subtract cards on the screen. So you see I can have any of these cards applied to my screen. So what's important to me, so my top defects list, as it were, and so that would now be on my screen, and from then on I'd be able to have my defects as well. And it also has, as Brett said, when you ask Jewel, what are my top things to do today? Well, one of those might be to approve purchase orders. And so the actual purchase orders will come up, and straight away from my desktop, I can approve or reject them. When I do go into utilizing an application, for example, I'll go into my purchase orders, then the screens themselves present nice and clean. I want to go into the detail of this. I simply hit the arrow and drill into actual purchasing, for example, and utilize the application. Nice clean screens, everything in one screen, easy to see, scrollable, so you don't have to go through a number of tabs. You just scroll down the page. If you want to save time, you know you're straight away going down to attachments, then just click the attachments button and it will drop you or lift you to that particular point on the screen. We do extensive training with you, but if for any reason there's a need for you to review what you've been trained on, or perhaps you've been assigned someone's role while they're on leave and you didn't quite capture everything that they told you how to do it, then you can go to the help. And from here, it will tell you all about the actual application itself. It'll take you straight into the full help documentation around, in this case, purchase orders and how to manage a purchase order. And it will take you through all of the detail around that. That may include diagrams, videos and the like, and it's all contained within sourcing and procurement. So there would be several hundred pages that are available to you. That's great, but sometimes it's easier if the system actually trains you again. So you can go to the Learning Center, and from within the Learning Center, you have available to you click-through training looking at the exact screen. Now you can see here by the numbers, 1,362 pieces of training here. But the reality is we only want something to do with purchasing. So let's just type purchase up here. And the system will now turn around and say, okay, there are 210 things specific to purchasing. You might turn around and do it by a role, but I'm happy that I know what I'm trying to do. I want to do an actual, procure direct materials, and the system will then load me the click-through of how to, and there's, as you can see, an overview video, and then how to convert purchase orders, how to create a purchase order, approve a purchase order, all of the steps. Let's do creating a purchase order for the moment. and it will take me through how to actually do a purchase order on the system. So a box showing me what to do, so saying click here, and it says, all right, so go and see purchasing. And so this is looking like exactly what I did before when I went into the purchasing overview and managed my purchase orders. And as you can see, it's actually taking me through the steps to create a purchase order. Now, if I click on the wrong field, it will actually help me to know what to do. And so I'll hang on a second, I'll try that again. And then I need to start typing in the details, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, enter, and it will actually run me through every step to generate a purchase order. I won't keep going because I'm sure you're getting the idea of what I'm showing there. And I actually literally have only a few minutes today. So the system can be tailored to your requirements, starts with a role, and then you tailor it to the way you operate. I think analytically, so I have all my master data in a box over here, for example. So you tailor the screen to operate the way that you want to operate. But alongside that, SAP will supply you all the help that you need to keep going through the actual application and to know how to perform your task if there's any questions that you have. So as I said, I'll go briefly into the actual item master or the product master data, and we'll look at the product that we're going to work with today, just as an example product. Now, I have created a list of products that I might handle at the moment, but this is a curated list of only 3 items, but I can also have the standard view, which comes out of the box, which is every single product that I have on my database. It's 509 of them, far too many to look at. So I can go through and I can look for a bunch of products. I can look up by product description, by the barcode number, within groupings and so on, or I can create curated lists that turn around and give me just a selection of products, which is what I've done here. So I'm going to handle some shrink wrap roles today. Once again, a page full of information. I'm not going to go through every detail. I'm trying to show you here that it is a comprehensive record. And so you have, do you do batch management? As Brett says, batch management is serial numbered. So do you have any of those requirements? What's your description? Do you have that multilingual? What's your barcode number? Do you handle it with multiple units of measure? Is it by pallet, by carton? How many eaches are in a carton? All of those sort of things are available to you. Scrolling down a little bit, how you might purchase it, how you handle it for sales, how you store it, because it might be a hazardous material. You might not be able to mix materials. Do you do shelf life on it? All of these fields and values are available to you. And then you can go into a plant by plant basis. So for my Brisbane plant versus my Melbourne plant, for my Sydney plant versus my Perth plant, how does it operate on a plant by plant basis? So I can go down to my MRP side of things and look at, do I buy it? In this case, it's externally procured. How long does it take? How long does it take to deliver? How long does it take me to put it into stock? Do I have, minimum stock levels, maximums, all of the fields that you'd expect. That's just, as I say, a glimpse of what you can do and the detail that's behind the system. You don't have to fill in every field, and so you don't have to use every field either. So I've got my product, so I should probably have a quick look at my forecast. So I'll go in and have a look at the forecast I have for that particular product. And again, I've got my listing coming up. I'll just use this record for the moment. And so you can specify how many units that you expect to sell, in this case monthly. So what's my sales, and then I can have how much I did sell, so my actual forecast versus my actual, and then the system will work out what's the accuracy of that forecast. And because it works out the accuracy of the forecast, it can actually propose a forecast. Now, my apologies, that's not a great example there. Let me just try this product as well. Add another product on there for you and drop into that particular one. And so you'll see here that I thought I was going to consume or sell 13,900. I scrapped 4,080. I then sold 4,900. So how's my accuracy? Well, I'm getting closer. And so the system says, well, next month, perhaps you shouldn't be doing 19,000. You should be doing 4,700, because that's the reality. And so what happens is it does a rolling forecast and keeps an eye on it for you, using machine learning, using its algorithms and saying, hey, you keep predicting that you should sell 200, 20,000, 200,000, whatever the number is. But I actually think based on your real consumption, your forecast should be this. It starts to feed you the information as to how you should operate, how you could operate. It's trying to help you do your job rather than let you do it all manually. And so I have the forecast for the product, and therefore I can go into my material requirements planning and have a look. Now, I have this set up to open on the standard one, so it shows me all of my 156 items, and it color codes it and says, you're actually going to be short on this product. You're okay on this product at the moment, but you're starting to show shortages. For today, I want to look at one particular product. So I'll put that product up there as my shrink wrap rolls, and I have a problem. I'm short by 3,900. So let's go in and have a look at how the system has determined that I'm short on that product. So within the product, I have a safety stock of 2,000 and I have 14,000 in stock. So one would think I have plenty. Take away the safety stock, I now have 12,800 that I can play with. But I have a requirement already coming out of the system of 1,100, 3,000, 12,000. Whoops, already I'm 4,000 short. So then I have that extra 100 that's going through my forecast every month, and it's actually a rising forecast, and therefore my stock's going to get crippled. And so the system is saying, you should raise a purchase. So what I'll do is I'll take that purchase requisition and I'll convert it into a purchase order. So the system itself is saying to me that this is the demand, this is what we suggest you do. So it's going to recommend I go out and buy some stock. So straight away, it's created a purchase order for me. And I'll just write that number down, number 81. And so it's saying you should create a purchase order. So from here, if I go into my purchasing, the system will have generated for me a purchase order number 81. Let me have a look at that particular PO. There's my PO number 81, and it's been through an approval process. And because I have the authorization, it has automatically approved that for the quantity and the value, and it has sent it straight to the supplier. So what did I have to do? I had to click on a recommendation in MRP and say, thank you. And it did the rest of the processes for me. Automation. Why should I have to then make a note of the details, go and create a purchase order, send the purchase order, put it through an approval process, whatever the case may be? It's just done that process for me. I can go in and see the details around that particular PO, and it will take me back into my purchasing. And if I look at my status, it will say that you have completed it, you've sent it, but it hasn't been delivered and it hasn't been invoiced. So at any time I can come in and see where I'm up to. So I'm waiting for my delivery. Let's go in at now then, and because it's a demo, we can always do these. This is great, I love it. You go into purchasing and you go, the goods have arrived. So I'm going to post a goods receipt. So the goods have arrived to the plant. What was your purchase order number, sir? Now you'll see over here the button scan. That means that I could actually scan a barcode. I can have a tethered scanner. I can use a handheld scanner as well, but in this case it would be a tethered scanner, for example. But in the meantime, 46181, I'm going to type in my number because I know the details of it. And it says, did you receive it all? Yes, I received 3,900. Now, and they might have delivered 3,800 for some reason. Okay, and then I can turn around and say that that actually is it. The delivery has been completed. There's not more to come. And so when I post that, that will put those goods into stock for me. And I now have a received product. Now you'll notice that I'm using multiple tabs here potentially. So if I go back to my purchase orders, whilst that's just doing that, and just do a quick refresh. That was what I was looking at earlier. I will close my help. If I go back into my purchase order and I look at my status details again, now I can see that it's been received and I have the quantity that I was expecting. I can check it there, and the price was correct. So the price matched the quantity that I requested. And from there, I can go in and do my supplier invoice, checking my time. I'll do a supplier invoice. That can be uploaded. It can be manually done. And if I had done those processes, then when I go back to my purchase order, and today I won't do that just for time purposes, then I would see my green recognition here that my delivery is correct, my invoice is correct, so I'm doing my 1, 2, 3-way matching on the process. Extremely simple to use, everything in one screen, nice and easy. Now that I have received those into stock, I can do a sales order and I can then do the whole sale and dispatch. So I will quickly go through there and create an invoice, an order, sorry. And we'll just quickly sell some of those products. You can have different order types. I'm going to do a standard order here. And type in my customer's details, start typing in part of their name or their code or similar. And then what am I going to sell them? In that case, it's my N105. And you see I start typing in the name and it goes straight to the product. I'll just do 2 roles for the moment. And because it has all been set up, it knows exactly what the product is. It knows the pricing specific to this particular customer. And I can create that sales order. 15 seconds and your sales order has been, get my sharing bar out of the way. Great, thank you very much. Seconds to actually turn around. So you've done hang on a sec, something's incomplete. What have you done that's incomplete? So you can come up here and look at your incomplete. You should have put a customer reference on. Freudian slip for you folks, just to show you how that works. And it highlights for me that you should have put a customer reference. So I just simply use today's date normally. I don't know what it is at the moment. 17/11/24 will do for the moment. Now I can create my order. So as you do a process, you raise a purchase order, you raise a sales order, the system actually checks that you have entered all the right data. So sales order number 134 has been saved. So beautiful. That's the one that I want to dispatch to the customer. So from there, I can turn around and go through the process. Again, I'll do one step of it to create an outbound delivery. I want to pick it, pack it, send it. And so the system will allow me access to all of the data. There's number 134, create a delivery for it. It might be multiple items that are going to that one customer. It might be multiple deliveries. So from there, I can see the actual delivery that is going to be done. The system has created that delivery. And from there, I can pick it. Yep, perfect. Good quantity. I managed to pick both of them. And it will give me a green light to say, yep, all good. And from there, I've got to get my mouse out of the way. I can actually do the delivery itself. Now, as I do all of those particular steps, then the system will also be keeping a record for me. If I go back to my sales, have a look at what I did earlier, just to make sure everything ran smoothly for you. If I go in and have a look at number 133, for example, it will show me graphically the actual process that occurred for this. So you raised a sales order, you then did a delivery, you invoiced it, which generated a journal entry waiting for payment. So it's still grey because we haven't been paid yet. But in the meantime, the customer has actually returned some of the goods using complaint processing. So every step that you do is straightforward, recorded, visible. You can see exactly what you're going to do. That's as much as I was going to show you for today. So I'll just pass over to Justine, and she's going to take you through the Sales Analytics Cloud and show you the wealth of reporting that we can get as a result of those transactions.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Let me just share my screen. And what we're looking at here is what we call the SAP Analytics Cloud. Now, it allows you to not only report data from within the S4 system that Andrew's just been showing you, but also we can pull data in from any other systems that you might have, whether that be flat files, SQL databases, or a number of other data sources that we can access the data from as well. Now in here, I've got a dashboard that's related to wholesale distribution, and I've got information about things like what was my delivered on time and in full information, but also a lot more graphical data about some of the information that I want to see. So here I've got my sales by units per class and by date of order. And within any of these graphs, I can drill down to get more information. So I might look at, these are the quarterly sales. If I keep going down, I'll get to monthly sales. So I can keep drilling through that information to get to the level of detail that I want. Now, with my delivered on time in full, for example, I might want to look a little bit more deeply to see what's actually happened in there. So if I right click onto here, I can go into what we call our data analyzer. And this is where we start to get a little bit of artificial intelligence coming into how we create the information. So I've had someone create this dashboard for me. They've published it out, and I can see that level of information. But I can also then go and create my own reports based on that same data. So if I come in here, I've got my delivered in time, on time in full measure there, but I can create a little bit more detail around this. So say, for example, I want to see it by item class. And I might want to see the item description sitting underneath that as well. So I get a lot more level of detail. If I close this back down, I can see a different level of information. So say, for example, I want to see this as a graph rather than a table. So I can then choose, okay, I want to see it as a line graph. Now, it's not really all that helpful. Maybe I want to look at it as a pie chart. That's a little bit too complex, so we'll take the item descriptions back off. And now I can see as a pie chart the different item classes that I have and how the delivery of those has been going in terms of on time and in full delivery. Now that's great. I can create my own reports and I can get a lot more data out of it. But I also have an option in here called Just Ask. And a little while ago when Brett was starting, he talked about Joule and the assistant, that AI that is throughout the SAP system. So Just Ask is basically the version of that sits within the Analytics Cloud. And the idea of Just Ask is to just ask a question. So I might say, I want to see delivery in full on time by item class, I'm going to say by month. So rather than me having to go and create the report, decide what measures I want to have in it, whatever else it is that I want to do, I can get the system to create that report for me and to create it in the most appropriate visualization and give me the information that I need rather than me having to go and create it for myself. So that's having a bit of a think about it. And of course, as it often does when we're doing a live demo, the system is not quite doing what I want it to do. But if I click up the slides that I have here, just to give you an example. So the whole idea is that rather than us having to ask it in a very computerized way, we can ask these questions in a natural language and get information immediately. Then on top of that, once we go into the Just Ask, I can also get the system to give me more insights. So what are the things that it thinks that I might be more interested in and the detail level that I want to get to. So let me come back into my live system. And as I said here, I've got quite a few different data points. I've got quantity moving trends. I've also got the ability to filter the data that I'm looking at. So say, for example, I don't want to look at a whole year's worth of data. I might only want to look at the second half of the year. I change that and my graphs change so that I'm getting the level of detail that I want. And now I have no detail in that particular one, so maybe we'll go back this way and only look at the start of the year. So all of that sort of thing is a very interactive way of being able to work with this information rather than having to go to someone who's created this dashboard for me in the first place and get more assistance from them on how to create these reports. As I said, I've got quite a few different graphics on here, and I also have multiple pages. So this is more about my sales side of the organization. If I go to my next page, I've actually got information about purchasing. So what are my top 10 vendors? What stock have I got sitting in the system that we haven't sold for a long time? And I can see information like what's my dead stock quantity, but also what the data is. And if I have a look at that in full screen, so I can see a little bit more of the data, I can see the quantities and the cost. And I can add extra columns into that particular report if I want to as well, just by simply going, I want to add, in this case, a comment, or I want to change the way that the data is actually being applied. So all that sort of thing is possible within a very interactive and very visual environment without me having to go back to someone to get them to change that for me, which does make life a lot easier. And the reason that we have the comments in here as well, which I forgot to add, is these stories are something that you might be sharing with other colleagues. So you can put comments in to say, okay, well, I think we need to do a special, maybe we need to do a special to clear the LED TVs, because there might be new ones coming in and we don't want them sitting in the warehouse taking up space, where we want to be able to have that new stock coming in and be able to sell it to our customers as well. So there are quite a few different functionalities that I've shown you today. If I go back to my first page, so you can see that there is a lot of detail in terms of what we can deliver in here. And as I said, it's not just about the data from S4, it is actually able to pull in data from other areas. So if you have external payroll systems or external EDI systems or whatever it happens to be, that data can be brought in here as well to be able to do comparisons with your ERP data as well as the external data as well. So that's pretty much all I wanted to go through for today. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And am I handing back to you, Brett?
Yeah, thanks, Justine, and thanks, Andrew. Great demonstrations there from two of our product and industry experts. Really appreciate that. Andrew, have you got anything else, or should I close out?
Yeah, no, it's fine. I've got a slide up there at the moment, Brett. Just thank you for taking it as we transition. So, just want to point out what we saw today and some of the benefits that might equate to for you. That look and feel, a very modern, intuitive interface, easy to use, easy to personalize. Navigation is a simple thing. That item master data that I showed you, yes, it's comprehensive, but it's not complicated. It's scroll down the page, select things as you need them. Your ability to forecast, make sure that we stay on top of the forecasted orders. The artificial intelligence, as it were, in there that works out that it thinks that you should consider how much you forecast. It keeps an eye on the business for you. Your MRP will recommend. You can override it, but once you accept that recommendation, you saw it just build that purchase order. I didn't have to do anything. It went through that approval, it created it, it sent it off to the supplier. One click for me to do that. And so that was a nice open thing. When I looked at the purchase order, I could do some of the three-way matching within the purchase order and see where it was up to. And as we went through the sales, I could see the whole flow. And you can see, I said at the time, you can see the flow throughout the application, not just in sales. And it's what Justine just showed you with the analytics side of things. I call it data, but it's so easy to consume. And ERP systems are notorious for having all the data in there, but making it hard to get hold of it. Information of the nature that Justine was showing you, the die font, the dead stock, it just makes it so much more useful to work on your business rather than in your business. We think that SAP S/4HANA Public Cloud, we call it lots of names, but that's the full title. We believe that it can help you to grow your business. Today, necessarily, very, very high level. But if you'd be interested in finding out more about it, if you'd be interested in us coming out and doing a discovery, doing a detailed demonstration as fits the needs of your business and show you the solutions for it, we'd be more than happy to help you out.
Welcome everybody to the Lean Thinking Applied to Inventory Management for Distributors, presented in partnership with Leverage Technologies. A little about myself. I've worked over 30 years in supply chain and distribution in manufacturing with businesses between 10 and 600 million. I've been a judge of the Australian Manufacturing Awards, travelled to Japan and Germany to look at supply chain systems, and I have tertiary qualifications in competitive systems and practices, otherwise known as Lean or the Toyota Production System. Okay, so this inventory management program will introduce you to a model called the Glenday Sieve Analysis. And the objective of the Glenday Sieve Analysis, which is a simple tool to assess the current state of inventory, well implemented, will achieve the following. It'll reduce inventory days, it'll reduce the cost of goods, and it will reduce lead times related to the order to cash cycle for your enterprise. An example of the Glenday sieve analysis is this. This was one of the very first models that I implemented in a very large medical devices distribution businesses. At that time, it was a $270 million turnover or top line revenue organisation with a 5,500 pallet warehouse and 16,500 SKUs physically in the warehouse. When we did the analysis of the Glenday sieve, which is represented here by this pie chart, you'll note that there are 5 colours. Green represents the number of SKUs that give you 50% of sales. Yellow represents the next 45% of sales. Blue is 4% of sales. Red is 1% of sales. And grey are the number of SKUs that are physically held in the warehouse that have not had a transaction for greater than 12 months. So green indicates 50% of sales, of which, when I did the analysis in this organisation, 1.6% of their SKUs gave them 50% of sales. 27.5 gave them the next 45% of sales. So therefore, you've got green and yellow, which represent 95% of sales, which is just over a quarter of the pie chart. 4% of sales is represented by blue, and in this organisation, 26.5% represented 4% of sales. 1% of sales is represented by red, 13.5%, and over 30% of the inventory that this business was holding in their warehouse had not had a transaction for greater than 12 months, which is pretty catastrophic when we assessed in real time what the organisation was sitting on, which was $70 million worth of inventory on $270 million worth of sales. So, in summary, 1.6% of their SKUs, that is 267 SKUs out of 16,500, gave them $135 million. 44.5% of SKUs represented 1% of sales if you add red and grey together. So when we look at the Glenday sieve analysis, which is an incredibly simple way of getting an absolutely accurate read on what organisations are sitting on in terms of SKUs, we can use MetaVision to look at the data in different ways. For example, the previous slide indicated that that was the number of SKUs that represented certain categories of sales. You can also look at the value of inventory that you're holding. You can also look at the margin that you're holding in terms of SKUs, and you can also look at the movement, which is particularly relevant when you're talking about moving boxes in distribution. So the number of SKUs, for example, that represent 50% of movement, total movement or volume through a warehouse is a particularly beneficial way of looking at the flow in your warehouse and therefore the productivity in the warehouse. This slide indicates that it's the total value of inventory. You can look at it in other ways, for example, by product group using the standard colours of the Glenday sieve analysis. I might point out that the Glenday sieve analysis is named after a British management consultant named Ian Glenday. I have an approval to use this model publicly, and indeed have improved the model by adding the colour grey, which was not previously part of the standard model. It is very, very important that we differentiate between 1% of sales and those SKUs that have not had a transaction. It's an incredibly versatile tool. It's very easy to read, it's very easy to understand, and most importantly, it has some real cultural benefits in terms of transforming the organisation to focus on inventory and understand what really matters in the business from an operational perspective. You can also do it by supplier. This is an example of supply. That is, if you see the dominant colour red, you'd have to ask yourself in this particular organisation, why are we ordering such a range of SKUs that represent 1% of sales? Here's another one. Again, you'll come to see that there are patterns in this with this model, the application of this model. Note, of course, 3% in this particular case of consumables in this organisation, which is represented by 14 SKUs out of 419, represent 50% of sales in consumable items in this particular organisation. I have done over 200 Glenday Sieve analysis into over 200 companies, and the mix is curiously consistent, irrespective of what the industry is, what the business is, the scale of the business. It's a very good read on what the current state of your inventory might be. So I would absolutely encourage you to learn and understand the Glenday Sieve analysis and be prepared for shock. Here's an example of the financials of that previous slide. So the consumables by sales value represented 14 SKUs, which delivered $2.8 million worth of sales. The stock on hand is 478,356 boxes, if you like. But when we get down to grey, you'll note that there are 121 SKUs that represent 1% of sales, which is 29% of all SKUs. The sales value is minuscule. So again, using MetaVision to look at inventory from different angles, I would encourage supply chain managers, supply and demand planning managers, operations executives to really get a handle on what your inventory really looks like. Again, consumables by movement in this organisation. This is a medium-sized business that's about, in fact, probably a small to medium-sized business of around about $15 million turnover with consumables and capital equipment and technical service parts. But again, if you look at this, you've got 8 SKUs that represent 73,549 boxes sold, which represent 2% of SKUs. And I guess when you start to ask the next obvious question is, well, where are they in the warehouse? Quite often I find that those SKUs are scattered throughout the warehouse in different family groups or product groups, which does nothing, absolutely nothing to improve productivity. It's like the adage of where's the milk in a supermarket? Milk is a green stream item, and yet it's at the back of the supermarket. And the reason why it's at the back of the supermarket is because the supermarkets want you to stay in their supermarket for as long as possible and know that milk as a green stream item, if it's placed at the back, you may end up impulse buying products that you may not need. When milk should be, in theory, if we focus on productivity and efficiency in business, it should be at the cashier. So there are some clever tricks of the trade that supermarkets employ, but I would suggest that in your businesses, what we are seeking is high-end efficiency, even when it's manual. So here's capital sales again, yet another example of what a Glenday Sieve analysis can look at with spare parts. And what I wanted to do was represent what long-term sustainable efficiency looks like. So in this particular business, the ratio of the value of inventory to sales when I started was 24.3%. 4 years later, we were able to get that to 14.2%. You'll note that there is very little movement in terms of the total value of inventory, which was sitting at around between $70 and $80 million. But what you will note is that the grey bar indicates sales revenue. So in other words, not only was the business able to pick up new business because they had the right stock in the right place in the right quantities, but they are also able to become lean and more efficient which enabled them to have a competitive advantage in the marketplace in sales. So what does this mean for you as distributors in supply chain? An increased cash flow due to not over-ordering and developing a demand and supply planning cycle, which I hope most of you have already implemented. Increased productivity by doing more with the same resource on the warehouse floor, and that relates to reconfiguring the warehouse once you remove the grey and the red stream items from the business, quarantined and removed from the business. Suddenly you will end up with 50% more warehouse space in your organisation in the distribution part of the business. That allows you to reconfigure the warehouse into a very clever coloured flow. In other words, green stream items being closest to the pick face or automation conveyor systems, and the yellows and the blues, then the reds, and there should not be any grey in that or in your organisation or in any organisation, because it's costing the business money to store red and grey items in your business. You've paid for it and it's unlikely to get a return. Reducing our operating costs through natural attrition in labour, which is not required because you're picking more with the same resource over time. Reducing your lead times, servicing customers faster by a 25% minimum. In other words, if it's taking you 3 weeks lead times or 2-week lead time, then we're really talking about shaving 3 or 4 days off those lead times. And creating more capacity, which creates agility and your ability to be able to deal with disruption in global supply chains and national supply chains. This is an example of after reconfiguring a warehouse, the productivity dividend that we got. You'll note on the left-hand side, it's picks per person per day. The break in that run chart indicates when we reconfigured the warehouse, we were able to do more with the same resource. And there was a cost benefit saving per annum of $330,000 with a team of 18 people employed in the dispatch part of the warehouse and receiving. So what I'm seeking and what I look for in clients of mine is a willingness to learn and try new things. Be not afraid to fail, have the ability to inspire and collaborate with the best and brightest within the organisation, who have the attributes and willingness to learn about the Glenday Sieve analysis and how it applies to the organisation, a focus on continuous improvement and building a culture to stop and fix when things aren't right. I don't believe that there is any business out there in the marketplace that could not benefit from at least doing a simple analysis using the Glenday Sieve to see just how ugly the baby could be. So the smart, simple list of action as a result of implementing the Glenday Sieve would be to value stream the order to cash cycle to remove constraints, identify slow and obsolete stock and increase and drive stock turns, measure supplier performance in terms of supply in full on time in spec, increase productivity by improving flow, visual management, speed or velocity and space utilisation in the warehouse, and concentrate on the value-adding ratio and the value-adding activity that should exist in a warehouse of pulling, picking, packing, loading and dispatch. There should be no inspection. Inspection is waste and it is a cost. So you need to strive for getting your organisation to a point at which every pick is accurate. Measure performance using, if you're a manufacturer, OEE, which is overall equipment effectiveness. Of course, all of you should be monitoring your delivery in full on time in spec, and that should be between 95 and 98 as a minimum. And become data literate using simple tools to improve processes such as the Glenday Sieve analysis. So the next steps, simple action owned by the businesses. From analysis, what then? Employ a lean tool called 6S to identify and remove slow and obsolete stock. 6S stands for sort. In other words, identify what stock you have physically in the warehouse by even tagging the corresponding colour to the movement of that product. The dominant colour, I will guarantee you will have in your warehouse will be red, or a red tag with a G on it, which denotes grey, and identify that inventory so that you can remove it from the pick face and the racking, quarantine it and dispose of it appropriately. The last resort should be that it goes to landfill. There must be a use for it. There must be value for it. If so, to whom? The product has value, and find those people who you can develop creative ways of removing and eliminating that inventory from your business. Use basic, simple lean tools to redesign and relay the warehouse to maximum productivity at no cost. Establish the systems and procedures for sustained competitiveness and employ the right talent.